Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives and careers in and out of the ring, as well as doing acts of community service and charity. We're all about positivity here on the show, and I've got a very special guest today. She is the widow of the late, great, legendary Bruiser Brody, Frank Goodish. Barbara Goodish is with me today. She is a board member of the Cauliflower Alley Club, and this is a pleasure getting to talk with you.
Well, right back at you, Stanley. I'm thank you for having me on your podcast. I'm very honored.
Yeah, of course. All right, so tell me about where you're from and your upbringing.
Originally from New Zealand, but left New Zealand. I was 18. Went over to Australia, to Sydney. Got a job there in Sydney because when you grow up in a small country, you usually just want to move on. Unless you want to get married and have kids and that, you usually want to travel. I'm talking back in the 60s, which kind of gives my age away, but back in the 60s. So the plan was always be you go to Australia and then you go on to England. That's usually the plan when you're a little adventurous and you want to see the world, which is the best education possible.
Oh, no doubt
You have
about
to
it.
remember, there was no TV. There was very rarely TV. I didn't even see TV till I was 15 years old. That was the first time I ever saw TV. I remember going to the movies and watching all these pictures from different countries, and it was like, oh yeah, this looks really interesting. So moved over very young. I think I was 19 when I moved over to a different country, and spent 10 years there. And of course, that is where my path actually changed. So instead of moving on to London, I ended up in this wonderful country, America. This is where I happened to run into Frank Bruiser Brody. Just by coincidence, he was working. I worked in a hotel which had a lot of the American gentlemen from over here when they did a tour of New Zealand and Australia. They stayed in this hotel, and they were all just like my big brothers because there was no internet. There was no, social media. So when they left home, the only thing they would write letters. This was the old days when people actually wrote mail to each other because it was very expensive to even make a phone call between the countries. It was just about unaffordable to be able to make it. And you didn't have the technology. So what happened was he just happened, like I said, they were all like, so I talked to them, and as I said, they were lonely. They showed me pictures of their wives and their families, and I know it's pretty lonely when you go to a whole new country and everything is so different. And so this one night, Frank had been in the hotel probably for about 2-3 months. He'd been in there quite some time, just talking. Well, this one night I got talked into, well, didn't get talked into. Somebody didn't turn up for the 3 to 11 shift. So I just happened to be doing the 9 to 5. And it was like nobody showed up. So I said, oh, well, okay, I'll work extra, make a little extra money. In those days, any extra money was good. I'll make a little extra money and I'll work till 11 o'clock at night. Well, at 11 o'clock at night, it just so happened that the boys had just worked, the wrestlers had just worked a show, and they were just coming back to the hotel as I was packing up, getting ready to leave. So one of my friends, Killer Carl Krupp, who has also passed, he said to me, look, why don't you, my boss was an American gentleman and he owned a bar up the street from the hotel where I worked. He said, look, we're all going to go up. It was a piano bar. We're all going to go up, have a drink after work. Look, you've worked all day. Come have a drink with us. Oh, well, that sounds good. When you're late at night, if you're working late at night, it's a whole different thing than working a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
you have to unwind for
Mm-hmm.
a couple of hours. So I said, well,
Yeah, it does something
there's
to your
no,
body. Yeah.
yeah. So I said, well, there's no harm in this. So I went up, and there was a whole pile of them. I think it was even Andre the Giant was there. I mean, I met so many of these great wrestlers who some are still friends today. That so went up and we're all sitting. I mean, I've always learned from a little girl, you don't judge a book by its cover, because you're talking,
Of course.
there was, I mean, Bruiser Brody, Andre the Giant, there was midgets, there was all sorts of characters.
It was a circus.
It was a circus, a wonderful circus, the best people you could ever,
Mm-hmm.
meet.
Yep.
So it just so happened we're sitting there, big table, one by one, they happened to leave. Oh, this is okay. Well, yeah, we'll be right back. We'll be right back. This went on and on for an hour, over an hour. So, and then all of a sudden there was three of us. There was me, Frank, and Carl. All of a sudden, Carl gets up. He leaves, didn't come back. I found out later I got worked. He didn't know how to get me by myself. He said, she's not going to come out with me. Why don't you, can we all, you ask her up. She knows you. So I got worked. So he was a good worker. I got
Oh, yeah.
worked from the very beginning. So that is how we kind of got together. We just sat there and talked, talked all night. And it was kind of like when you're friends with people, and it wasn't a date. It wasn't anything where, I know, if you go on a date, you kind of want to be on your best behavior. So you don't really show your real self at the
Sure.
beginning. Whereas when you're with friends, you're yourself. So there's nothing to hide. There's nothing, you just carry,
Right.
you're you. So yes, I got worked. So that's how it all began.
That's an amazing and funny story. Just it's almost like love at first sight. Um,
Yeah.
the hard way.
Hard way, yes.
So that's so cool. So you're in Australia. Your plan was to go to England. I mean, I'd imagine, the difference between the two countries, three countries with the United States. I mean, the seasons definitely are so much different, like the climate and the weather, and wow, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, because you have to realize that over there it's completely opposite. You know, uh, we're summer, they're winter, they're
Hmm.
winter, we're summer.
Yeah,
It's completely different.
yeah,
And I think that's what I found, because I remember the first time I grew up with Christmas going to the beach, because it was summer over there in Christmas. So
hmm,
it was always summer. The first Christmas I spent over here was snow. We're up in Detroit, Michigan, where his parents were, and it was snow. And I remember I was totally amazed, because all of a sudden here was snow on the ground. You always see pictures depicted of snow and people going around caroling and the lights reflecting on the
hmm,
snow and Santa Claus and
yeah,
things. Well, having summer, that never was a vision. And I remember, and there was carolers came around the house out on the street singing songs. It was like I'm in a dream. So it was, you're right, it was a big, but it was wonderful, because I
yeah.
suddenly realized this is what Christmas is depicted by.
Yeah, it's a magical happening, getting to experience different cultures and, night and day differences. But, so you met Brody at while you were working at the hotel. What can you tell me about, you know, the first couple of dates you guys went on, and then early on as you guys started, getting to know each other better? What was life like for him, while on the road?
Well, he was over there for about 9 months, 9, 10 months. He was over there. He came back for Christmas, and then he came back over to the States. So he was working there doing the circuit from, Australia and New Zealand. And one night he just came back. We'd been talking, as I said, and of course everybody said, well, he's just using you. I mean, he's going to be gone. He's an American. He's only here for a short time. Well, he came back one night from working, and he said, I'm going home tomorrow. Oh, okay. Well, That was nice. But what he did was he had a load of cash in his hand because he'd been paid that night, put it on the table, and all he said was, I want you to come over. That was it. No promises, no, oh, this is this, and I love you, we're going to get married. No, nothing. It was just, I want you to come over. Well, I knew that for Frank, if you ever know anything about him, he was very frugal with money.
Mm.
So he put all that money on the table. It was telling me that he trusted me because anybody could have just kept the money and just not gone.
Sure.
But with me being adventurous, I thought, well, this is a great opportunity. America was not on my radar because it was going from, Australia to England.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, this might be a good opportunity. I get to see another culture. I get to see another country. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it works out. Well, of course, I thought, well, this is my way to get to London. If it doesn't work out, I'll have a ticket to America. Then I'll have a ticket to London because to get a visa, you have to have it.
Oh, yeah. It takes a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to have a ticket in and a ticket out. So I was on a visa, and I went, well, yeah. I might end up in London if it doesn't work out. Well, let's go see what happens. Well, I'm still here, so I guess you can say it worked out. So,
yeah, it definitely did. Definitely did.
So I'm here, but yeah. So as I said, I always remember my first vision of America was, you're on the plane, and then you're getting off the plane in Los Angeles, and you have to remember this was back in the 70s. And there was no restrictions. Everybody could come up to the gate where you come off the plane. And the first thing I saw coming off the plane was the Hare Krishnas. They were there. They were there doing their. I don't think they do that now, but yeah, they were there, and I was like, this is an interesting country. But then I remember too the scare, coming into San Antonio, because that's where I was flying into. That's where he was based out of back in the 70s. And it was like, I wonder if he's there. This is a big trip, but oh well. Hopefully, he must trust me. So the trust was what was there. So I said, yeah, he'll be there. And sure enough, I get off the plane, and here he is waiting with a big smile on his face. So yeah, as I said, I'm fortunate to have the time I did with him. I wished it was a hell of a lot longer though, but life sometimes throws you a few little curves, and you just have to kind of change your path sometimes.
Right. Now, before you met Bruiser Brody, were you a big wrestling fan growing up? Did you ever watch it?
Didn't even know really it existed.
Really?
At all. Never been to a wrestling match, had no idea. Just knew it because of the fact that they stayed in the hotel. So I was like, oh, they're wrestlers. I guess they go out and wrestle. Still didn't watch it. So really didn't have any knowledge. I just knew the people that wrestled without knowing exactly what they did.
Right. Now, how long were you and Brody together?
Oh, that was like, I think 12 years altogether before it happened. Because
12 years.
his son was 7. His son was 7 when he lost his dad. So yeah,
that's horrifying. Losing your dad at such a young age. Unbelievable.
I know. And he kind of went, you know what I mean? No, it's hard, and we won't have to get into it, but especially the way that happened with his dad. It wasn't like an accident. It wasn't an illness. It wasn't something. It was a horrendous thing that happened.
Yeah.
And I still don't know exactly how much he remembers, but the thing that got me, I don't know if you've seen the Vice episode, Dark Side of the Ring.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of it. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that's the first time that Jeff, my son, has ever done anything with wrestling. He kind of, and everybody's asked me, wow, is he going to be a wrestler? No, because I think he kind of blames wrestling for losing his dad, which I can, I see that. I can't say anything. It's just you've got to let them work the things out, themselves.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And the producers, Evan and Jason, were kind of his age. So we went to Austin and we did the episode in that. That's where he lives right now, is Austin. I'm in Florida. So we went to Austin to do the episode where they filmed our part of it. And I'm just sitting here doing an interview and, like I'm talking to you, except in real life.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, yeah. So, and Evan turned around to him and he said, would you like to say a few words? It blew me over because I could not believe that he was actually going to speak about his dad. Well, it really got me too, because it was like when they asked him what memories you have of his father. I mean, it was kind of like he said to the effect, well, everybody else has memories except me. I went, oh, but at least he can talk,
Yeah.
at least he got on there and he actually talked and he actually, which I think was very, very helpful. So I really appreciate it. And I think they did a good job of the whole production too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, they still keep in touch with me because, that was the pilot for their whole series of Dark Side of the Ring.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's 3-4 years later, and now it's like Tales from the Territory. So they thank me because from that one episode of Frank, they've been producing these episodes now for this is the 4th year, I think. So it was kind of like, so they said, thank you for letting us do that episode.
Yeah, it opened the door, I think, to a lot more wrestling content on that channel. I think The Rock is Dwayne Johnson's producing the Territories one, but I've seen a few episodes of Dark Side of the Ring. It's a really good show. It uncovers, some truths, and it's kind of graphic. Some fans, who are watching this may want to check it out, or haven't checked it out, may or may not want to watch it because some of the stuff may, bring back some eerie, not so positive memories, or some good stories out there. But yeah, I did watch a little bit about that, about the Bruiser Brody one. From what I heard, I was talking with Herb Simmons about Brody. What a nice dude he was, like very charitable. Oftentimes, I think he mentioned something to me. Herb mentioned something to me about him encouraging a group of Boy Scouts one day. Just a heck of a nice guy.
Yes, as I said, and it's a shame how everything happened, because he was starting to think of life beyond wrestling, because what he did in the ring, his body was getting beat up. There was only a matter of time. He couldn't go out there and do the things that he could do. I mean, when I see a couple of some of the tapes and that, it's like, I don't know how he did that, to be such a big guy and to be able to be so athletic. Well, I guess that's part of why so many of the wrestlers are from college football and everything. Yep. Because you really have to be in shape and you really know pain when you're right. I watch football games here now, the NFL, and I can't believe what some of these guys, how they get so beat up. So that's kind of progression. When the football days are over, it's very easy to go into wrestling because you've already got you're already part of the training for the wrestling.
Yeah, it takes, football, I feel like, it takes years, off your career. That's why you see a lot of people retire so young. But a lot of successful wrestlers came from football. I mean, The Rock, had a stint, in Canadian football. I believe John Layfield, Bradshaw, he had a stint there. Ron Simmons,
Stan Hansen. Stan and Frank were roomies in West Texas State, and a lot of the football players that were at West Texas State went on to wrestling. The Funks.
Yep.
I could go on. There was a lot that came out of West Texas State in the old days.
I would say, but training to be a pro wrestler is not easy. I mean, I don't know. Could you tell me, did you ever ask Brody, like, what got him into wrestling?
Well, what it was, when he did go all the way up to the NFL, didn't really make it, but he did get. He was up in the Washington Redskins for a year,
Okay.
and then he got cut and he got red flagged. Didn't put enough into it. He said, "This is what happened." He said, "I thought I knew everything, but you know what I mean. You get up into that league, and you really, have to be tough." So when he got cut from the NFL, he went into like semi-pro football. I think Mexican, I think even Canada, the Mexico League, the Canada League, the San Antonio Toros is what he was playing with, which got him into San Antonio. Well, in San Antonio, when he realized, well, this pro football, that semi-pro football is not really working out. I need to think about my career. I need to think about what I, want to do. So he was a sports writer. He went into, because he studied journalism. So he did sports writing for a while for the San Antonio Express News. So he was, helped Dan Cook, whose pastor was, everybody knew, and back in those days, he was the sportsman. He always used to do the blip and the Express News. And then, because he was thinking, maybe I'll be a policeman, tough. You got to do something that's not a 9 to 5. When you've been in that kind of life, it's hard to go to a 9 to 5 job. And so he was at the gym one time. He was at the gym because he worked out, and he met Ivan Putski, Polish pal, Ivan Putski, and he suggested, "Well, yeah, you're a big guy. Why, what about wrestling?" And Ivan, I think, was part of the Von Erichs, so he introduced them to the Von Erichs, and the rest is history, because that's what started off right there. So it was a chance meeting at the gym that ended up going into the wrestling career.
And Brody, was like one of the most iconic wrestlers to wrestle in so many different territories. You're talking about
Oh,
Texas, St. Louis, Florida. The list goes on and on. I believe Undertaker had a match with Brody back in the day.
yes, people have told me, and I have not seen it, that he talks about. There's a couple of his interviews that he does talk about, Frank. And I can't remember whether he was the Undertaker back in those days, because he's had a couple of different names too.
Yeah.
When he
Dean
first started off.
Marcalis.
Yeah. So he had a couple of different names. So I know he's talked about, and a lot of people say, "Hey, listen to the Undertaker. He mentions Frank," and I know. And Ric Flair. I know Ric Flair is another one that Frank, that Frank knew. And they had some great matches together. In fact, before you even asked me, no, I didn't really go to any of the wrestling matches. Just because I was at home. I was at home with the Jeff and taking care of everything at the home. But one of the matches that I was fortunate enough to see was the Japanese had come over to St. Louis, and there was a match that he did with the Ric Flair that they went for 1 hour. Well, it shocked people because people didn't think that Frank could go for 1 hour, and especially with Ric Flair, but he'd already been over to Japan, and in Japan is a whole different culture of wrestling.
Yep.
You have to wrestle over there. It's hard work, and he was quite big in Japan. And so the Japanese wanted to come over here and tape a match of him and Flair. So, of course, it was a great match because they're being taped for the Japanese audience. And I got to meet Barbara, and I got to meet Mrs. Barbara back in those days, So that's, I have to admit, people have talked to me about that match. So I was lucky to see one of the good matches. Well, he always had good matches, but they were a little different.
Yeah, I mean, Japanese wrestling, they take it to a whole another level in terms of the physicality and some of the match types that they have. Death matches.
Oh, especially with him and Abdullah.
Jeez, talk about a bloodbath.
All I'm going to say is red makes green, if you know what that means.
Yes, yeah.
That's what I'm gonna say about it.
Yeah. What I find so fascinating is that, Bruiser Brody was known for like this extreme, hardcore, tough as nails brawling style that, can't really be duplicated. But, when he was with you, he was the complete opposite. He was a family man.
It's like I've said, when we'd go to the airport, these are the days you could go right up and let him off and pick him up right there. He would be dad, he would be husband, he would get out of the car, walk through the entryway to the airport, take his hair down, and become Bruiser Brody. Then when he came back, it was the other one. His hair was up, he would become dad and husband. And I think that's why he was successful, because he never lost sight of who he was. It was a character. That was his business. Bruiser Brody was a business. Frank Goodish was the man. And I think he never lost sight. Whereas sometimes when people get in the public eye, they lose sight of who they really are. They become the character they create. Well, he never did become the character he created. He did it as a business. And as I was just going to say before, when we're talking about the body breaking down and he was thinking about what to do with life after wrestling, which he knew was coming, that he had bought a parcel of land that had a little river running through where you could fish, hunt, things. And it had a little old mobile home on it. And what he was going to do, he was going to take unfortunate boys that, what I mean, that are on the streets, that are maybe
homeless or underprivileged or
underprivileged,
inner city kids. Yeah.
their lives were not that good. And he was going to take them and have like a summer camp. Take them out there and let them see, be that, because sometimes that's all somebody needs, is to know that somebody cares. The help, that know that they understand, especially someone that had the persona of Frank. And another thing was, he was working with a gentleman from the San Antonio. No, it was the the university, the San Antonio. They had a university in San Antonio. And he was working with a professor at the university. And what they were going to do, he bought a wrestling ring from Joe Blanchard, who ran the San Antonio, that part of the Texas territory. And they were going to set up a skit. They were getting permissions from the school, because, to do anything like that, you have to have all the permissions and all the paperwork and everything like that. And they were going to set up a ring at the school, and they were going to do a skit about the dangers of drugs, the DARE program, to let you know that, the dangers of drugs and things. Because as I remember growing up, anybody of authority told us anything, we didn't listen.
Right.
But you had somebody like Frank dressed up in his wrestling gear with his hair out, doing his crazy stuff. You think they wouldn't stop and listen?
Right. I mean, it's definitely a way to get somebody's attention. I mean, to say no to drugs.
Yeah, and we had BAM, a Brody Athletic Management LLC. That was the corporation that he had done. So it was all, of course, sometimes life has a different plan. But I always wonder what he would be doing today, because he had a lot of plans and a lot of goodness to help people too. Because he said, I'm in the public eye, I could actually help people. And, which people wouldn't think when they saw him in the ring, and that he would have those sort of ideas. And the strange thing now, because, I go to a lot of these fan fests and things, which is, like you said, Herb Simmons. We have to give that a big plug later on.
Yes.
This is a great thing. I won't get into that now, because I'll lose my train of thought.
Yes.
I've already lost it. So what was I? You have to remind me. Yeah, I shouldn't have said that. Yeah, about
you're talking about fan fest. And
yep, I got it. And I go there, and people will come up to me. These young gentlemen will come up to me, very respectful. They say, I've read your book. I watch his matches, and in fact, I've got the book behind me, and and I will ask them how old they are. They weren't even born. They're a lot younger. They're not even anywhere near the age of what it was when Frank left us. And I have these young gentlemen that know all about him, that watch the YouTube. The ones that really get me, though, are the ones that have tattoos. I've seen tattoos, huge tattoos on their arms, their legs, their backs that they'll show me. And it's like they've got him on their body. That's what a impression he left to these people, that he was gone before they were born. It really, it shocks me, I mean, it's just, but he always did say, he said, all he wanted to do, he wanted those fans to leave the building and say, damn, was that real? That was a match. Because he said, they're paying my salary, and I want to make sure that they don't feel cheated, that they say, that was such a great match. And I would like to say, it worked. Whatever it did, they still remember you. I'm still doing a podcast with Stanley, and they still remember you. So you did leave. You did what you set out to do. You left a lasting impression, but you left it good, because you just, I don't know, it's just it amazes me. It's 35 years coming up in July, and that's unbelievable.
It is.
To know.
42 years old.
Yeah.
Left us so young.
I know, but to leave such a lasting impression is, yeah, Frank, it worked. You did. You set out. That's what you wanted to do, and believe me, you did. Because I'm still talking about you today, and people that are still finding you that weren't even born. So it is quite amazing, when you think about it.
Yeah, he's inspired multiple generations. I mean, for those of that go watch YouTube or watch, I don't know if he's on the network, the WWE network or anything like that, if they have the rights to his matches, but to still see, what legacy he left behind for future generations. I mean, that's got to make you feel good.
Yeah, and I think you're right, probably on the WWE, because I think I'm not 100%, but I think they were the ones that bought up all the Texas tapes. Because I know somebody had bought all the Texas matches back. So that could be. I don't know for sure, but could be.
So what do you think it was about Frank that made him so, generous and want to give back to his community?
I think it was just, that's the person he was. He just, nobody would have ever thought that he would have been like that. But he saw a need, that he was in a position to help people. I think that was more it. He had the persona, he had the charisma, he had that people would actually, you know what I mean, listen to him, just like I was telling you about the professor and doing it at the university and that. And he knew that he had a power, that people listened to him, So I think that he said, I'm in a position, if I can help people, I want to help people. And I think that's part of his legacy too. But when I think about what he could have done, like we just talked about and everything, I think he could have helped so many people, young boys, because young boys would have looked up to him. And as we talked before, just that little bit of caring that somebody has for somebody. Somebody had told me a story once. In fact, this gentleman has a huge tattoo of Frank on him.
Yeah.
He shared a very, very, very powerful story to me. He was in St. Louis. He'd go to St. Louis, and Frank would kind of talk to him and walk out with him and everything. Well, he was going through such a bad, bad time that he was contemplating suicide. And this one night that he was, kind of contemplating, he was at the end. He's walking out with Frank. Frank took the time and they're walking and talking. And the last thing Frank said to him, "Hey, I'll see you next time here." And he said, he went home and he said, "Here I have this gentleman that wants to see, that actually speaks to me and knows me." And it said it changed his whole life around when he realized he's my friend. He talks to me, he comes over to me, and he's going to see me next time, So he hadn't shared that with anybody. And I thought that was a very powerful, when you say about helping people, that was a very powerful thing, that he took the time to talk to this kid.
Yeah.
He was a kid enough at the time, going through all the hard things. But as I said, with everything that's going on and everything today, as I said, and for everybody to still remember him. And here we go with Herb Simmons, one of my best friends, has always kept in touch. One of the people that Frank trusted with everything, him and Larry Matisak.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's who I wrote the book with, Larry,
Yeah.
who, rest in peace, is also not with us anymore. But every year he's been putting on, for quite some time now, the Bruiser Brody Memorial in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
And now this year, May the 13th, as I think it's the Aviator Hotel, with the band fest and everything, and all the people that he's got going, and then the wrestling match at night. I am so looking forward to this event and the people that he's got going. I mean, I'm going to get to see Stan Hansen, who's a good friend of mine too, who we only get to see every so often. When good friends, you're always a friend. You don't have to be in touch every day or anything. You see each other, and it's like no time has gone. JJ Dillon, another one. These are all people that I've known for over 40 years. Look at Greg Gagne. I mean, there's just I could just go on and take the next half hour by some of the people that are there. Yeah. And now with JJ, of course, his daughter is a very good friend of mine, Pam, who is a wonderful person. And then Darla Staggs, of course.
Yes.
There, Darla,
friend of the show.
Darla. Yeah.
We had her on a few months ago. Very nice lady.
Yeah, she's getting the Sam Muchnick Award. I got it last year, which they surprised me with.
Congratulations.
Yeah, they totally surprised me with that, and Darla's getting it this year. So get to see Darla, get to see Pam, get to see JJ, get to see Stan, Greg, Nord, the Barbarian, John Nord, who... all these people, they tell me such great things, because they always tell me stories on Frank too, because John was another one that he kind of took under his wing. And I'm always looking forward, because they always tell me all these different stories. So it is just going to be. Oh, and the one that I hope's okay is Bushwhacker Luke, who we just lost.
Yeah.
We just lost Butch.
That's sad.
I know, coming all the way from New Zealand over here, and then, which I'm very, very sad, because they're my countrymen.
Yeah.
Luke is my Kiwi mate, So, yeah, that's very, very sad. And those boys have been together for 50 years. I mean, I can go back.
Yeah.
That long, So this is what I mean. You just have to take each day, because we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. So you have to make the best of each day that you have.
But let's switch gears and let's talk about you. So you're working for the Cauliflower Alley Club, on the board of the Cauliflower Alley Club. What got you interested in working for the organization?
Well, it's a wonderful organization, as I know Darla would have talked about it, because wrestlers, there's no pensions, there's no health benefits, there's no benefits. You go out there, you give your body up for people's pleasure, and then you end up with nothing. And a lot of them go through such hard times, especially when you don't have medical and you're beat up and you need, you need a knee replacement, you need a shoulder replacement, you need a hip replacement, which a lot of them, as we know, the older ones already have. and there's no one to help. Whereas with the CAC, the Cauliflower Alley Club, you can go to them and they can give you a little bit of money to get you through a really hard time if you need something for the medical, or if you need to pay rent. Sometimes people don't even have the money to pay a month's rent because they're going through a hard time for that point. So to me, it's a wonderful, wonderful organization that will, and once again, to help people. Because I think even if you just help a little bit, if everybody would just help a little bit, what a difference everything would be,
Oh, no.
know,
Yeah, of course.
because so
Absolutely.
many people, so many people need help. And, you've given it all. You've given it all to the wrestling business. And then all of a sudden you're out with nothing. So it's, as I said, it's a really good organization. We're getting ready to have our, what is it, our yearly fundraiser, it is, in August. And it's a very cheap to join, and you get 4 magazines a year. They'll post you, mail you 4 magazines that tells you all about everything going on and who's going to be there. And the fans, you get to come, you get to fun. You're in Vegas, you buy Fremont Street, you get to join hands with the wrestlers that are there. It's a fun organization, and it helps. And it helps it helps the rest who have given all these people lots and lots of pleasure
Mm-hmm.
over the years. So yes, it's and as I said, it's please just the Cauliflower Alley Club. I know you'll put the website on your on after this too with
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
People can go check it out, join. It's only like I think $27 a year or something to join. It's not a big fee or anything, and you get something for it.
Yeah. It's a great incentive, and you guys have a lot of events. You're talking about the one coming up in Vegas. You guys have wrestlers come in for special appearances, and there's speeches, and sounds like a really fun time.
Oh, it is. You should try and make it one year.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love
You
to.
know, you know,
It's like a mini WrestleCon or something like that. Fan fest.
it's like a fan fest because I said they have their books and they have their different things and they have seminars and like I said, you get to rub shoulders with maybe your favorite wrestler and that, and it's a little difference than what it is a fan fest because it's a little bit more relaxed than a
Yeah,
fan fest where everybody's lined up to get an autograph or to do this. No, this is just something that you can go up to the different booths and talk to people. You don't have to pay any more money to get this or that.
yeah. It's a very intimate experience.
It's more of an intimate experience, correct? Correct. And it's Vegas.
Yeah,
Hey,
that's right. So what year did you get started working for the Cauliflower Alley Club?
it's probably only just been about the last 4 years. I would go every year because as you know, Frank got honored down there. It was the first
Hmm.
time I went there
Yeah,
because I had kind of, after everything happened, I kind of didn't really get around. I kept in touch with all the people I knew, like Stan and Herb and Larry and that, but I really didn't do too much, like go to any of these fan fests or do anything like that until they started asking me and giving Frank awards. Well, it's like, when you haven't been in the public eye, it's a little scary, you know,
yeah,
and
definitely.
have to get up there in front of all these people and give a speech to accept the award and everything. It was terrifying in the beginning. Now I'm okay. Now
Yeah.
I can talk. Just tell me to be quiet sometimes.
Well, that had
Yeah.
to have been a good feeling for you to win that award last year.
Oh, it was. I couldn't believe it when, all of a sudden they said, and the Sam Muchnick, the first Sam Muchnick award goes to Barbara Goodish. I went, oh, me? Dang, thank you. And that, like
Yeah.
I said, too, and with Darla being the second one, I couldn't be more thrilled
No,
for the
that's
two of them.
awesome.
And as you know, Darla would have to be the ultimate fan because what was it she's saying? She went to her first match when she was 6 months old with a grandma or something.
Yeah. I mean, she's a super fan.
Oh, she is a super, super, yeah. And as I said, so she's grown up with wrestling, and then she's just become a friend because she is just such a I mean, she's a wonderful person, as you know. You've taught, you know, you
Mm-hmm.
just some people just have this aura that you just immediately, you know how some people you meet and you immediately respond to, and
Yes.
other people it's like you just, you know, they're acquaintances, they're not
Right.
friends. You like
Exactly.
them and you know you get along with them, but there's not the closeness attached to it.
Of course.
And that's why I'm looking forward. I'm counting down the days. I mean, it's the what is it coming up? We're already April 13th of
Yeah.
13th of May. St.
Yeah.
Louis. Everybody
Right.
out there don't have their ticket to the biggest fan fest you can ever imagine. You won't be disappointed. You will have the best time. And it's St. Louis. It's the middle of the country. Well, kind of,
Yeah.
not really.
Midwest.
Midwest. So you're not going from one to the other. So it's for everybody. People from the north, people from the south, the east, the west can all come, stay in the
Sure.
hotel with all of us, go to the biggest fan fest with everybody, see all the ones that you would love to see.
They've got a star-studded lineup too. Jerry Briscoe's going to be there.
Yeah,
Oh
Jerry,
man.
see, I've got, and
Buff
his son,
Bagwell.
yeah, his son Wes is going to be there too.
Mm-hmm.
Jerry and you know Wes, which is going to be great to see Wes and Jerry again.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I mean. You get to see all the people that you know you only see at these things. So except for like I said with Stan. I mean, Stan and Frank were an item to be reckoned with in the wrestling business.
Why do you feel, in your opinion, for you, why do you feel passionate about helping out in your community?
Well, I think if everybody would just do a little something like we talked about, it would make so much difference in life because so many people need help. Sometimes, as I said, sometimes it's going to be a simple thing like a smile or an opening a door or play it forward. You hear about these things that people will buy groceries for somebody in the front of their line, or they'll buy the food in the fast food line or something, you know. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be much in life. It can be just, you know, tiny little things to help people because life is different now, as we know, after
It
COVID.
is.
And it's going to be, this is the new reality now. And people are struggling a lot out there. And this is what's so sad because everything has changed. And as you know, with prices between the gas, food prices, and everything, I mean, it's hard on a lot of people. So if anybody can just do a little bit to help, sometimes it doesn't have to be much to change somebody's life. And like I said, and I know I try to tell people when they're going through grief, that's kind of because I'm an expert, you know what I mean? I didn't want to be, but you
Mm-hmm.
know that sometimes because it's hard because some people never get over. They stay stuck in the past. They never can move forward. Well, that's not what the person would want. They would want you to move forward. There's still life out there. There's still meaning, even though it's hard. That,
Right.
as I said, like we talked about when you're walking along and then all of a sudden that door is closed in front of you and life has changed from what you knew and what you expected, and you have to make a path. You can make a wrong path, or you can make a right path. The wrong path, I've known people that have gone through things and they're still there. They've given up on life. They're still fixated on what has happened to them. And I know, and I'm not telling you, I'm not saying it's easy. It's not easy. I remember I used to write a list every day of what I needed to get done. Well, if I got one thing off that list, I accomplished something for that day. I'm not going to do the whole list, but just one little thing that needed to get done. Well, I moved one step forward and you carry on one little step here, one step there until you become real again and go back on life.
Hey, Barbara, this has been wonderful getting to chat with you about you and Brody and the Cauliflower Alley Club, everything. Where can people find you on social media, and where can people find more about the Cauliflower Alley Club, SICW, and everything coming up?
Well, they all have Facebook pages, which is lots of information. Frank has 2 Bruiser Brody pages on Facebook. Bruiser Brody, Wrestling's Last Rebel or something, which is, I'm the administrator. I check on both of them. And you know what is so good? Because people put pictures that I have never seen before.
Ooh, okay.
So if I don't know, are you on one of his pages? I will put you on. I'll send
Oh,
you an invitation.
sure. I'd love to join it, like it, yeah, and follow
Yeah,
it.
but
For
because
sure.
like I said, it's fascinating, and I see a lot of pictures from Japan. I mean, just him and Stan, not wrestling, just out there doing
Yeah.
something, and the
Eating
famous one.
lunch or something.
Yeah, eating steaks at the Ribera Steakhouse, which is the
Mhm.
famous steakhouse in Japan. Things like that, which normal things that I never saw. I mean, personal pictures that people put on,
Yeah.
and it's great. And with me, I'm on Facebook. Send me a message because I do get a lot. So if you've watched this podcast, just send me a message and tell me where, because I'd love to join. Like I said, I'm on Facebook, and like I said, there's the Facebook pages of Frank Bruiser Brody. I
Yeah.
call him Frank Bruiser Brody, which is quite fascinating. A lot of information on Frank on those pages. In fact, we should put about this podcast on his
Yeah,
pages.
yes. I'll be sure we're gonna do a lot of collaboration here because I'd like
Yeah.
to not only, get the video up, you share it, but I'd like you can share the Wrestling with Heart page so we can get more followers and more
Yeah.
people checking out, the Cauliflower Alley Club, same thing. A lot more people.
Cauliflower Alley Club?
Are you an admin on that page too?
No, not on that page.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
But yeah, the Cauliflower Alley page, they've got that. That's their website. Plus, as I said, SICW, Herb's
Yes.
page, Herb's
Yes.
page. So we've got that. So yeah, and I've got a Facebook page.
Yeah.
So please, and also I think between the 2 Bruiser Brody Facebook pages, there's like I think 5,000-6,000 people
Oh
on those.
wow. Okay.
Between the 2 pages and that. So it goes to a lot of people. So
Yeah,
yeah,
we'll plug this, we'll plug the Wrestling with Heart page, and we'll get everything up there. So thank you again, Barbara. And I'd love
oh
to have you on again at some point soon.
yeah, you should put me and Dollar on.
Yes. We'll be glad to get the both of you on.
That would be, then you'd hear all sorts of stories.
Okay. All right. All right, we'll do it.
Okay, and I will send you a link to the pages.
Please, yes, please do. I'll be sure to, and I'll send you the video when this is finished.
Sounds great. Well, I've enjoyed talking to you,
Yeah.
and have a wonderful day. And you got to meet my dog, one of my
All right.
dogs.
Yeah, it was very nice. Thank you
Okay,
again.
you're quite welcome.
Bye-bye. This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.